Well, the Toronto Blue Jays have fallen 11-4 to the Baltimore Orioles. Not the way you want to start a series, but a lot of bigger conversations and league-wide MLB news that desperately affect this year's trade deadline.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
As always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasko. Carter First, too, as well, on our main Twitter account, at Locked On Jays. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok, at Locked On Jays, Locked On Blue Jays, sorry. And then you can, if you haven't already done so, or you're listening anywhere else, head over to the YouTube page, hit the subscribe button. You guys have been excellent. All the new people coming in, it's so much appreciated. The comments, the likes, you guys have been absolutely fantastic. And we've taken in a lot of your ideas. It is a crazy busy week, but we're going to try to talk about them throughout the next few shows here, just with some of the trade ideas you guys have had, just some of your guys' ideas. We want to incorporate all that into the show. So leave your comments down below on everything we talk about today. There is a lot to talk about. I mean, there's stuff we're not even going to get to today because there is that much stuff. We're going to start with the game and just how things went down and sort of the big storylines to take out of it. We got to talk about the trade market now. A couple guys are now off the board. A couple guys are out with a ban. A couple guys are out because of injury. There is a whole lot going on around this trade deadline and the worst possible week for it to happen for some of these teams. We're also going to talk about a little situation that happened with Bryce Harper and the Phillies in regards to Rob Manfred. That was just a bad situation. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Blue Jays getting back on track for the rest of this series and the hell that is going to be later today as you guys listen to this podcast with 2 games for these Toronto Blue Jays. But Carter, I think we got to start with the elephant in the room, the pitching. We'll talk about the offense and obviously what happened to Springer towards the end of that game. But Chris Bassitt was just, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. It was pretty horrific.
Yeah, might have been his worst start of the season. The Baltimore Orioles are a tough team for the Jays to play. Whenever we roll into Camden, whenever we have to go to the Trop this year, it's Steinberger with the Rays. Those are 2 teams, no matter how good they're doing in the year, they're going to play the Toronto Blue Jays hard. So this isn't going to be a series where they're going to roll over for the Blue Jays here. They're going to have to work. They have some pieces. In this game, we saw Ramon Laureano, who they're going to be looking to move at this trade deadline. That price probably went up a little bit after the game that he did have today, launching a knuckle curve off of Brennan Little. I thought that was actually not a bad pitch by Little. We'll have to go into that as well. But back-to-back stinkers a little bit from this Toronto Blue Jays team. So I've already seen the narrative, which is absolutely crazy. The Toronto Blue Jays are about to go on the inverse winning streak. People just really seem to want to hate on this team. Maybe it's because I have a podcast. I'm seeing, all sides of Twitter. That's probably has something to do with it. But I'm just urging fans right now. I guess I'll phrase this question to you before I go into what I think here. Are you already starting to get a little panicked? Are you starting to get a little worried about this Toronto Blue Jays team after 2 straight losses? I went back and looked just for this episode. The last time they lost 2 games in a row was against the Sacramento Athletics, which, they're an absolute wagon. They swept the Houston Astros. So, you can't get mad at that, I guess. And the time before that, it was a little bit of a weird stretch. It was the 3rd game of the D-back series and then the 1st game of the White Sox series. And that dates back to June 20th. So since June 17th, they've lost back-to-back games twice. So that's a pretty good stretch by this Toronto Blue Jays team. And I think that just by itself goes to show you that they're probably going to be fine. But I'll throw it over to you if you have any concern about this Toronto Blue Jays team whatsoever.
No, I'll keep this short and sweet. No. People, you know what? This is a big fan base. The Toronto Blue Jays fan base is one of the biggest in baseball. You got a whole country behind you. And that's not counting, obviously, the people that are in the States, that are in other places of the world that watch this team. And we know some of you guys that listen to the podcast aren't from this area, and you guys still support this team, and that's unbelievable. In some parts of this fan base, people like to overreact very quickly. And that happens. And they try to not have it's almost like they're protecting themselves from being hurt again, but that's just not realistic as a sports fan. You'll just end up hating yourself all the time and the team that you love all the time if you go into it like that. So don't panic. This is 2 games. If it gets to 6 or 7, 6 games, 5 games, okay, maybe we have that conversation. But right now, take it easy. There were really good things out of this game too. Like we're not gonna gloss over it. It was a bad pitching game. The whole bullpen, the starting rotation, everything was not good. But there were good things on the offense as well. So again, don't overreact. Back to you, Carter.
Yeah, I was just looking at Chris Bassitt's game logs. I think it's probably his second worst game of the season. He had a game against the Red Sox where he gave up 1,000,000 runs, pitched 2 innings. Kind of a similar stat lines, but not a great performance from Chris Bassitt. The really bad part about this game is that you were hoping to get just any sort of length from Chris Bassitt because you do have a doubleheader on the day this episode is coming out. So you got some innings that you're obviously going to have to eat up. They haven't even announced a starter for that first game because it's probably going to be a bullpen day. But unfortunately now, you've used a few of your bullpen arms, like Mason Flaherty threw 24 pitches, Brendan Little threw 24 pitches, Tommy Nance, who's been really good since he's come back to his baseball team, and he threw 17 pitches. Justin Brule threw 13, Braden Fisher threw 11. So those two should be available. I think actually Brule might be down because he had the day before as well. So you have a lot of your higher leverage guys available, which is nice, but you do need some guys to carry over some length. And Easton Lucas should be with this baseball team. Lazaro Estrada might be a guy that we see eat some innings as well. So not, again, good timing whatsoever from Chris Bassitt, a guy who traditionally is very consistent, and you should be able to get some length from him the majority of the time. There's been 2 or 3 times he's had stinkers this year. It just sucks that it happens to be the day before a doubleheader when it's supposed to be 1,000,000 degrees outside out there in Baltimore. So just very bad timing for the situation the Toronto Blue Jays are currently in.
Yeah, he couldn't look at the fastball. That's it. And then as soon as they got on the fastball, then all of a sudden, then they could start sitting and knowing when the off speed was coming. So
I mean, he gave up a home run to Kobe Mayo. Like that just pretty much encompasses how bad the start was. You don't want to be doing that to Kobe Mayo in the year of 2025. Just like you said, sinkers right over the middle, especially in that third inning there. Adley Rutschman, when you get that double, sinker right over the middle. It was a common theme with Chris Bassitt. If you're not a fireballer, you can't live over the middle of the plate against any Major League Baseball clubs.
No, you can't. And you know what? We got a lot to talk about today, so I am going to sort of speed track this a little bit. Brendan Little also just probably his worst outing of the season as well. He was not good either. I don't know. There was a lot of problems today in the pitching, and I'm going to leave it at that. And I don't expect Brendan Little's been so good this entire year that I'm not reading a whole lot into this. Guys can go out and have bad outings. I think he out of his last so many starts gave up the same amount of hits and runs in this outing as he's done over the past how many ever starts. So I'm not reading too far into the whole Brendan Little thing. But he's down tomorrow or today, I guess.
Oh yeah, he's given up 10 extra base hits this season. 4 of them were in the Baltimore Orioles game. So that just goes to show he's been the epitome of consistency. We haven't really seen any stinkers from Brendan Little. I think there was one more earlier in this season where he didn't have that good of an outing, where those outings are going to happen. But just a weird one from Brendan Little. That home run from Ramon Laureano, that's a knuckle curve on the inside part of the plate. He just makes a very good swing, pulling that ball to left center field. Ramon Laureano absolutely mashes left-handed pitching. So I quickly wanted to bring that up when we were talking about this Brendan Little saga, is that do they just, make a trade and Laureano just walks across the diamond, maybe making his way into the Toronto Blue Jays clubhouse? That is a guy that we have talked about on this podcast. A bunch of analysts have talked about as well. Nothing really officially linking on that I've seen anyway to the Toronto Blue Jays, but you can be sure that the Toronto Blue Jays have done their due diligence. They're getting a pretty prime look at a guy that is can help them down the stretch. So I just wanted to quickly throw it over to you on that regard. Is that, would you like to see Ramon Laureano come to the Toronto Blue Jays ball club?
Listen, I said I think this team, I would like them to add one bat here and somebody that can do the job. And he seems like a guy that can do the job. So, I would be all right with that for sure. Again, depending on what they have to give up, whatever. But yeah, I'm going to be pretty happy with that, Carter.
Yeah, he's a guy you can throw in the outfield. He's going to provide a little bit of that pop, has a cannon of an arm. So if you wanted to do the little thing where you got Barger and Laureano out there, that might be absolutely living hell for opposing base runners. But like I said, a guy that absolutely mashes. It's not left-handed pitching; it's right-handed pitching. But 918 OPS for Ramon Laureano. I mixed those ones up, but you're going to be facing a lot of right-handed pitchers. So Ramon Laureano could be a nice asset for this team, kind of down the stretch. Yeah, just a little bit of a stinker from Brendan Little. Not a lot of good outings from the bullpen here whatsoever. Toronto Blue Jays tried to punch back. They try to answer in the third inning, and they do answer. Nathan Lucas, very good game, very good stretch from Nathan Lucas. He has quietly become one of my favorite players on the Toronto Blue Jays team. Really does everything, all the small things right. Starting to find that little bit of a power stroke now as well. And then that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. swing that we have to talk about as well. it swings like that where we got so upset in the first 100 games of the year is because he has that in him. It's a fastball on the inside part of the plate, and he takes it the other way to almost straight away center field, but hits it about 400 feet. And it's just a beautiful swing. And it's nice to see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. again. The timing's starting to get down. He's starting to get the bat head around. A lot of things are pointing in a good direction and the right direction for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to start hitting those doubles, to start getting those clutch hits, start hitting for a little bit more power. And it's looking like it's going to come at a very good time.
Yeah, you need it. And this is something we've talked about, right? If this team's going to do damage in the playoffs, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has to be at his best. Because if he's at his best, that's just another thing that teams have to really worry about. And that's not even talking about George Springer, Addison Barger, or the franchise record-setting Bo Bichette with 9 consecutive hits. A guy that, again, I think we don't talk about enough, back leading the league in hits once again. So
talking about on Monday, it's going to happen once again. Here we are
talking about Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. If they are both going right now, if we get a Bo-tember month in August, maybe, and then a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. resurgence for the back half of the season, this team might just end up being unstoppable if the pitching can hold up.
Well, we look at some of these bullpen arms that have had some blowups. Like, that's the whole point of this trade deadline coming up, is that they should add to this bullpen. There should be a bunch of guys that we're seeing, the Justin Brules, the Chad Greens, who we didn't really have the conversation about because we were trying to remain positive after 3 out of 4 against the Detroit Tigers. But Chad Green, I said I don't really want him in leverage. We're kind of getting to the point where I don't even know if I want him on this baseball team, especially if you are going to add 2 or 3 bullpen arms at this deadline. Justin Bruce will be one of those guys who bounce out of there. Right after that, it might be Chad Green. Like, he might be the next guy. I was like, oh, I'm not the most confident when this guy goes out there. And you have Paxton Schultz coming back, Jimmy Garcia, hopefully at some point comes back, Nick Sandlin. So you're going to have a lot of options. So this Toronto Blue Jays team, I think they're going to hold on to Chad Green for as long as they can, especially with the injuries. But as soon as everyone's back, I mean, does this guy even really have a spot on this team anymore? So that is a conversation that we're going to have down the stretch. But back to the Bo Bichette and Vladdy point. We haven't really seen a point since 2022, maybe, where we've seen Bo Bichette and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. both firing at the same time. And God forbid if the pitching goes to absolute crap now when we see both of these guys starting to catch fire a little bit here. I know it's only been 2 games, but that would be traditionally the Toronto Blue Jays ways. One thing goes really good, and then you kind of lose the other thing. But yeah, if we can get Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., absolutely smoking baseballs when you still got Barger, you still got Springer, you still got a lot of these other guys, Nathan Lucas, Davis Schneider when he's in there, Joey Loperfido. Again, you name everybody on this roster, really, other than Ali Sanchez, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of good things going on offensively for this Toronto Blue Jays ball club, and that's why we got to remain optimistic, even though there was a couple stinkers, mostly out of the bullpen. I guess the starting pitcher wasn't that good in the second game, but still lots of reasons to be optimistic and a fun little stretch that we have coming up. 2 games of baseball on the Tuesday. Hopefully a trade or 2, hopefully a couple players in additions coming to the Toronto Blue Jays. So I think we're set up to have a pretty good week here. At least on this podcast and just for the Toronto Blue Jays fans and media.
Yeah, and you know what? The talking about some of the guys here that just continue to have success, and we're not even talking about Alejandro Kirk, who will be back sooner rather than later, and Dalton Varsho. And you need, Alejandro Kirk. Even though Tyler Heineman, pretty good day again. The guy does his job when he's in there. But Alejandro Kirk is unbelievable, and you need that bat and that defense in the lineup. Dalton Varsho should be making his return fairly soon as well. So this team looking so good, it's almost like you're getting another trade, right? When you get the Alejandro Kirks and the Dalton Varshos back, and hopefully eventually, some of the bullpen pieces as well. So whatever they end up doing, you also get those guys back on top of that, which Dalton Varsho in his rehab starts looks incredible. This guy hits nukes like it is easy. Like they are gifting them on silver platters to this guy. So he is going to be a great bat to get back in the lineup and a great center fielder. So there you go. 2 for 1.
Yeah, 100%. He's been hitting this entire time. It's really just been the base running progression and his running progression with that hamstring. So that's been, if you're going to look at a positive from the injury from Dalton Varsho or the injuries from Dalton Varsho, is a lot of them have allowed him to continue to hit the baseball. If he can come back, especially that left-handed bat, and start to give you some pops. One thing we still haven't seen a ton of necessarily is the home run power from the Toronto Blue Jays team, and Dalton Varsho is one of those guys that can come in there like he did in his first stint in the Toronto Blue Jays with the Toronto Blue Jays this year and start hitting for that power, start hitting home runs, especially if he can do it from like the 5, 6, 7 spot in the order. If you got a middle of the order bat, or even on the lower side of this order that has that much pop, that is going to be a nightmare for opposing pitching staffs. So yeah, excited to see Dalton Varsho. hopefully come back to some capacity and hopefully continue launching baseballs like he was in his first stint this year with the Jays. But ton more that we want to get into. It is trade deadline season, so we do have some stuff that we want to talk about. Some interesting storylines from around the MLB, around the trade deadline as well. So a ton that we want to get into, and we're going to dive right into it after this short break.
Today's episode brought to you by Game Day Hue. Can you see? I'm wearing the hat. It's awesome. I finally put it on today. And fans like me, this one hits the mark. It is perfect. It's clean. It's sleek. Game Day Hue makes clean, no logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro or college fan base. It's all about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game days, on the course, or anywhere in between. I love it. The fit is fantastic. It feels sturdy. Like, it's not a cheap-made hat, which is my biggest worry on even some of the expensive hat brands. Like, these ones are solid. They're breathable. It's the perfect golf course hat. Honestly, if I'm going to put a label on it, it is the absolute perfect golf course hat. I got two of them. I got the one with the little peak. I like the little peak. Some people don't. There's one that doesn't have the peak as well. So pick your choice there. They also make fantastic golf gloves too. That's the one I'm rocking all the time. It's white and blue. Matches my set. It's fantastic. Right now, you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals. So now's your time to load up. Let the colors talk, because colors speak louder than words. That's GameDayHue.com. Code MLB15. So, Carter, just as we continue on here, obviously some big news in regards to the trade deadline, the MLB as a whole. I'm going to go into just a couple stories here. I'll throw them over to you for your thoughts, but I want to let the people know exactly what's going on, because they are interesting and they are crucial to this trade deadline, especially for certain teams maybe looking to grab these guys. Now might have to go somewhere else. So it affects the Blue Jays. Even if the Blue Jays specifically weren't looking at these guys, now that other teams may not be able to. Now they might go to the teams that maybe the Blue Jays were trying to talk to. So I want to start. Guardians Class A placed on leave amid gambling investigation. Major League Baseball placed Cleveland Guardians closer Manuel Clase on non-disciplinary paid leave through August 31st amid a sports betting investigation the league announced on Monday. Clase's teammate Luis Ortiz is already on leave because of the inquiry. The Guardians have been notified by Major League Baseball that as part of their sports betting investigation, Clase has been placed non-disciplinary leave in agreement with the MLB Players Association, the team said in a statement. So Clase is now non-tradable, so he is now off the market. So a big-time reliever off the market. So that's going to push teams into a different scenario. And Carter, I'm going to just get into the second one, and then I'll get your opinions on both of these, because there are two. And this just happened in the game Monday. D-back Suarez considered day-to-day after he was hit by pitch, got the pitch right on the hands. No serious damage, but who knows how long that's going to set him back for. It may just be a couple days. But another guy that a lot of teams are interested in, at least asking around for, does this now affect the market for him as well? So two big pieces, Carter. I want to save the Bryce Harper, Rob Manfred stuff for the third segment, because it's not as important right now, but it is for the future with the lockout incoming possibly after the 2026 season. So, Carter, those two stories, thoughts, opinions, how do you feel?
Yeah, it sucks to be a Guardians fan right now. I mean, you had some expectation going into this season after going to the ALCS. Now you just have everyone gambling on the baseball games, and it's not a good look, obviously, for that team. They kind of did the same thing they did with Luis Ortiz, and I saw a lot of the first pitches that Clase speculated to be betting on and be putting picks on. A lot of them were for first pitch balls, and a lot of pitches that not the most competitive that you've seen from Manuel Clase. I can't remember which analyst went into it, but he looked at 22 pitches, saw 11 of them that were non-competitive, and one of them was swung at. Imagine if Clase was actually, I'm not sure, I'm not going to say he was for sure betting on these games, but if he was, and that's the one, he had as a ball and it's in the dirt, and the guy swings at it, he's probably like, God damn it, this game sucks. He's just pissed off. But I mean, absolutely deserve it if he did do that. I don't know why you're betting on your own games. You talked about in our Locked On group chat. These guys are making millions of dollars, especially when you're one of the best closers in all of baseball. I don't know. I know you're on arbitration, and now you're not making, that $15-20 million deal per year that you maybe want, but you're on track to do that. I know you're not having the greatest year of all time. I just don't understand where these professional athletes are taking that big of a risk and betting on their own games. Just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, unfortunately, for that one. But just with the Eugenio Suarez one, I don't have much on this one, just really bad timing for the Arizona Diamondbacks. You got to think it does diminish the value at least a little bit, provides a lot more uncertainty. Probably a lot of teams going to be calling in, checking on Eugenio Suarez. Again, the x-rays came back negative. Doesn't mean anything long-term, but you got to be worried with those hand injuries. And when you get hit in the hand, there's so many bones in there. Like soreness can be such a big thing. If it's his throwing hand, I didn't even see which hand it was for him. So there's a bunch of things that can go into this hit by pitch. So a little bit of unfortunate timing for the D-backs. But to be completely honest, I don't think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be in on Eugenio Suarez. Anyway, I don't really think there is a fit here, but I don't think it's necessarily the Toronto Blue Jays' priority. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are bidding aggressively for Suarez. The D-backs have already kind of come out and said that it is going to take a boatload of prospects to get Suarez. So I don't necessarily think there's going to be something that does impact the Toronto Blue Jays, but I guess indirectly it could impact the Toronto Blue Jays if he does go somehow to the Boston Red Sox. I don't think that's going to happen. But if he goes to an AL contender, that might be a different conversation that we're going to have.
Yeah, and the whole betting on games thing is just crazy. Leave that to us. Leave that to us degenerates that just like to gamble, all right? Just stay in your lane, all right? It's not where you guys are needed. Also, we didn't talk about George Springer getting...
I was going to bring up third segment.
But getting hit in the head. That's just a... that was tough. That like a pit in the stomach, your heart drops a little bit because you don't know what's going to happen. And, you sort of forget about baseball for a second. The whole ballpark went quiet. I mean, me and Carter sitting on the couch. And I don't think either of us said a word for the first couple minutes. We just wanted to see if he was going to get up and move around. And he looked okay. It did look like it clipped his shoulder, hit him in the helmet. So hopefully it's nothing serious. Maybe a concussion. It very well could be, but nothing official yet that has come out. John Schneider post game didn't get any information yet. It's usually something that takes a couple minutes for sure to figure out, well, hey, if there is anything wrong. But hopefully there is nothing too serious going on with George Springer after that.
Yeah, I got a couple quotes from a few different people in the game. This one is from John Schneider. He says, thankfully, Springer was able to turn a little bit too, and he was alert the whole time. So again, like initial concussion symptoms don't look like they're there. Again, it was a pretty scary play, especially again, after getting kind of beat up on a little bit. And then in the ninth inning, one of your best players the entire season, George Springer, gets hit, and he has had a little bit of injury history as well. So not what you want to see as a Blue Jays fan whatsoever. But Tony Mansolino, the interim GM for the Baltimore Orioles, had something to say on this instance as well. Flat out off the start, not intentional. Again, horrible situation, but not intentional whatsoever here. This is why Tony did comment on this, I believe. I don't know if it was intentional. It's probably not, saying this about George Springer. But he says George is one of the more well-respected players in the MLB, really, when any player is in that scenario. Anyone who's ever kind of stood in the box or stood in the field at any level, I think we all kind of cringe. And then you see it happen to a guy like George, and it's even more so terrifying. We hope he's okay. And the fact that he walked off the field, that is encouraging. And you never want to see that happen to anyone, whether it is even the Yankees as our rivals, it could be the Dodgers, whoever it is. You don't want to see injuries in Major League Baseball, especially head injuries, with all the research that we've seen on what concussions can do to people, CTE, especially in the NFL world, becoming a very prevalent thing. So yeah, a very scary injury, but it looks like for the most part, again, it's nothing's fully confirmed, but it looks like we avoided something serious here with George Springer.
Yeah, and thank God. Oh my goodness. But it was terrifying. You know what? For the pitcher, sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now. I just texted it to the group chat actually.
I'll get it for you. Thanks. It starts with an S, his last name.
Yeah. Anyway, so in the next at bat, you see him throw a few pitches over. Sorry, Stroud. That's what I was thinking. It's Stroud. In the next two at bats, I mean, he didn't even try to go anywhere near the inside of the plate. Everything was outside. He looked shaken up. Like, obviously, he didn't mean that. Pitches get away. It does happen. You hate to see it. But no, we're not throwing shade or nothing at him. That was totally intentional. I think you could see it in his face. He went down immediately too, and you saw the remorse. So no hate here. Never great, but it's not like we should be blowing up Twitter or anything, calling for this guy's head. So
this is a young guy in the major leagues as well. He's thrown 6 1/3 innings. That's why I was struggling to remember his name, is because he hasn't really been around a whole lot. So he obviously has hit somebody in his career, but you hit, not necessarily an MLB legend, but a well-respected player, obviously in the major leagues. In George Springer, probably a guy that he watched growing up. He's probably not going to be happy about that situation. You could tell that he felt really bad, and we kind of had the same memento as everyone else at that ballpark is that everyone kind of held their breath, hoping that it was going to work out. And again, it looks like it has at least sort of worked out. Made the best of a bad situation is, I guess, the way I will put it here. But again, it's trade deadline season. We do have some trade rumors to go over. So as every time that we do see something, we are going to bring that to you guys on this podcast. So the first one we brought up, I think it was you brought this up a couple of weeks ago, the Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto links to the Toronto Blue Jays. We have a couple other ones here as well. I have seen reports, obviously, Zach Gallen being linked to the Toronto Blue Jays here as well. But Dylan Cease might be a little bit of an interesting one. This dates back to this offseason as well. There was a problem with the Padres, is that they don't necessarily like to lock up a lot of guys long-term. And now they have Michael King and Dylan Cease on expiring contracts. Dylan Cease might be one of those scenarios where they move on from Dylan Cease, but they get a guy that's a little bit cheaper, maybe with a little bit more control. That's why he has been linked to the Red Sox for Jarren Duran. I don't think that's going to happen, but I've been seeing that all over my feed. But this one is from John Heyman of the New York Post, and he reports that pretty much all of the AL East, it's the Blue Jays, the Rays, the Red Sox, and the Yankees have all checked in on Dylan Cease on that fireballer. It hasn't had the greatest season necessarily, but the stuff is still there. He is still top 10 in the MLB in strikeouts. So if you can get a guy like Dylan Cease, I kind of, when we talk about Zach Gallen, I said Zach Gallen's not having that good of a year. Do you risk it for a guy like Zach Gallen? I'm a little bit more comfortable in what Dylan Cease has been doing this year. You've seen a lot more of the flashes from Dylan Cease. I think for that rental, you wouldn't have to give up the absolute bank. But I think if you can get Dylan Cease for even like your number 8 prospect, even if it's like a Gage Stanifer, if you had to give up a Cal Steven for Dylan Cease, maybe that's a little bit too expensive for some people in that book. But I'm not a guy that with this Toronto Blue Jays team right now, it's going to be like hugging prospects and be like, oh, like that's a little bit too much. You have to slightly overpay for a guy like Dylan Cease and that caliber of pitcher. I think you're going to have to do it if he's at your disposal.
Yeah, I agree. And this is something we've talked about a ton when we've talked trade deadline stuff is prospects to me are, and to you, are lottery tickets. You never know what's going to come of them. And right now you have a chance to do something. So if you have to, I don't want to say overpay because nobody ever wants to overpay. But if the price is what it is, then you give that up because you do want to make a push here and you want to show your team that you're behind them and that you trust them to do something here in the playoffs. So yeah, I think you do what you got to do.
And this leads me into my last trade that I have seen rumors on. I actually have a full mock trade on this one here. I'm going to just get your reactions on it initially, kind of see what you think. But somebody threw this in our Locked On Fantasy group chat as well. It's kind of funny. I was going to bring it up for this podcast. I believe it was Jim Holler that brought it up in that fantasy group chat. So it's funny that we were just going to talk about that on the podcast anyway. But this has something to do with Joe Ryan, a guy that I have been a big fan of. Kind of recently, I've been a little bit more out on him, not because I don't like the player. It's just going to be a boatload to get Joe Ryan. The Twins have said they want a very big package for Joe Ryan, which is kind of fair. It would take most likely both of Trey Savage and Arjun Amal for sure one. So again, I know some people aren't going to like that. For me, if you get Joe Ryan, you get Joe Ryan in the roster this year. You have some control with Joe Ryan. Obviously, you have a very good chance to at least go on a deep playoff run this year. But this is an article from Garrett Kerman, and he said the organization, this is actually an interesting blurb he had from here. It's the only place I've really seen it, but he says that the organization's reported untouchables are Arjun Amala and Ricky Tiedemann. You don't have Trey Savage on here. Thought that was interesting. Again, I don't have a confirmation on that. Just figured I'd throw that in for the podcast, just kind of some food for thought and get your reaction to that as well. But this is the trade proposal for Joe Ryan. I want to get your reaction to this as well. I'll let you dive into it after this mock trade here. But obviously the Blue Jays would get Joe Ryan. The Minnesota Twins, in return, they're getting 4 players in this mock trade. They're getting Orelvis Martinez, the number 9th ranked prospect for the Toronto Blue Jays here. Alan Roden, that fringe MLB talent. A lot of teams could use an outfielder like him. Brandon Barriera, the left-handed pitcher, number 16 on the Toronto Blue Jays, a fireballer, but has had some injury concerns. And then Gabriel Martinez, an outfielder, a guy that has been slowly moving up the prospect ranks, but hasn't even in the top 30 yet. So a little bit more of like a sort of a throw-in, but also like a higher ceiling shot there. Just overall reactions. So kind of the last 2 things that I said there.
Okay, I'll go on the trade first. Yes. Easy. I don't know. That's the absolutely.
It's just not. It's not going.
That's not happening.
It's just not.
Like,
I agree.
I don't know. That'd be sick. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm hitting the yes button on that immediately. I want to go back to the untouchables thing. If that's true, I'm very concerned because there should be no prospect right now that is untouchable. And for the two to be Ricky Tiedemann, Mr. Made of
Ricky
Glass.
Tiedemann's an interesting one for sure.
Mr. Made of Glass, Ricky Tiedemann, and Arjun Nimal, I get that, but like no Trey Savage. And if you're going to have an untouchable, the two should be Trey Savage and Arjun Nimal. But you shouldn't have untouchables anyway right now. You don't have one of the best prospect systems in the league. So you don't get to decide that. If you want good players, this is what good players cost. So that's ridiculous. That's the first time I've heard about that. So take that with a grain of salt, I think, because I could for sure seeing one of those two guys being moved. Maybe not Ricky T just because of the injury stuff, but Arjun Nimal, I think, has to be on the docket here.
Yeah, maybe you don't want to sell Ricky Tiedemann because his value is pretty low again with all the injuries that he has had. Still the number 3 prospect with the Toronto Blue Jays. So take with that with what you want to there. That could be a good or bad thing, I guess. But yeah, I'm with Ricky Tiedemann. I just don't think a team's going to be like fully in love with him enough for the Toronto Blue Jays, and clearly the way they're valuing him. Again, I'm not taking everything from what I saw with that tweet, but the Toronto Blue Jays clearly do like Ricky Tiedemann. He has been a toply touted prospect. He does have a lot of those raw characteristics as well. But you got to be available to kind of showcase those characteristics. So for me, if you're getting a pitcher with any sort of control, nobody's untouchable. If you get a guy that can be with this team for 2, 3, 4 years in the future, and he's going to be a consistent, proven arm, especially proven arm, I don't think there's anyone that you should have on your untouchable list. For sure, if you're just getting a high leverage arm, you don't want to give up Trey Savage for a rental. But there has to be some give and take there, obviously, as well. Last thing I quickly wanted to go into. I want to trade with the Pirates so bad. I want it more than anything because there's a bunch of arms that I want there. It's not Mitch Keller. It's actually Dennis Santana and even more so David Bednar. Give me David Bednar in a Blue Jays uniform. The splitter and curveball are absolutely ridiculous. This guy is blowing people away this year after kind of having a bad 2024. It got sent down to AAA a couple times in that year as well. But David Bednar would have another year of control. He would be going through the 2026 year. A guy that can rotate in with your Brennan Littles, with your Yariel Rodriguez's, with your Jeff Hoffmans, with Jimmy Garcia when he comes back. A 12.34 K rate this season. 35 innings pitched, has 15 saves and a 2.31 ERA. He's really good. Just a really good baseball player, a really good pitcher, and he's been even hotter in this last little bit of a stretch here. So you might have to give up some prospects, but you get Dennis Santana in there as well. A wipeout slider on Santana would be perfect for this Toronto Blue Jays bullpen as well. If you can get those two guys, I'm already kind of all in on this baseball team, but I would be fully just ready to go and expecting an ALCS at least series if you go in and get those two guys.
Yeah, I'm with you. The more and more I've been seeing him, he's on my top of my mind right now too, and just the Pirates in general. For me, I think that is a team that is wanting to get a deal done, and so I think that would be a perfect opportunity for the Blue Jays to slide in. So, I guess Carter, I'm going to ask you this, and I didn't tell you about this. Sorry. So the Pirates number 1 for you right now. Like if you could be like, this is what I think is going to happen. Is that where you're hanging your hat right now? Just obviously this podcast could be out, and you guys and something could have happened, but. What do you think?
You have some history with the Toronto Blue Jays and the Pirates at this trade deadline. I think they're calling about David Bednar. I can't tell you, obviously, if that's like their main priority. That is my main priority now at this point. If I could be Ross Atkins and I could orchestrate this trade deadline, I'm getting David Bednar. I don't care what it takes. I'm giving up. I'm overpaying a little bit for this guy. He's that guy you need in the back end of the bullpen to really lock things down and just give you that another option for John Schneider to use in a high leverage situation. And if we're going to talk about, moving Arjun Nimal, moving Trey Savage, the possibility of that, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't really see it happening. But if you have if you want to throw Mitch Keller in there and get David Bednar, Mitch Keller, you got Mitch Keller for 3 more seasons, you'd have David Bednar to the end of 2026. At that point, if you gave up a Trey Savage, if you gave up an Arjun Nimal, I'm more okay with that right there. You have to give up some other guys as well. I don't think you give up both for that scenario. And the thing with Mitch Keller is that he's probably not going to be your number 1, but he's a guy with control. He gives you some stability for the future years, especially with Bassitt, Gosman, Max Scherzer, some of these guys coming off the books. So that would be more of a longer-term move. But I think for me, if you have to give up Arjun Nimal and a couple other guys to get those 2 guys with some control, I'm not going to bat an eye at that whatsoever.
Perfect. We're going to talk lots more about trades coming up. We got a couple days left. We'll see if anything happens. Make sure you stay tuned here. If a trade breaks, we'll be live. One of us will be, or within a certain time span. Obviously we work normal jobs as well. So we'll get it to you guys as quickly as possible. We'll be live. We'll break it all down. But we will have a post out, something as well, so that you guys will know to check out the YouTube page for when we do go live. We got to get in and we got to talk a little bit. I'm just going to mention it because we will talk about this obviously in the future, but the Bryce Harper, Rob Manfred situation, and then trying to get this team back on track after 2 sort of tough losses. We'll be right back. So, Carter, I'm just going to kick it off with this story. I'll get your quick reaction. We don't have to go fully in depth. It just was insane. And TSN, Sportsnet, all these places, we're going nuts on this. And honestly, rightfully so. This is crazy, and it's showing us a little bit into the future. Obviously, a potential lockout after 2026. This is what happens. Philadelphia Phillies first baseman Bryce Harper told Rob Manfred to get the F out of our clubhouse. If the MLB commissioner wanted to talk about potential salary cap during a meeting with the team last week, sources told Jeff Passan. Harper reportedly became frustrated when Manfred talked about business of baseball, although the commissioner never explicitly mentioned a salary cap. The 2-time NL MVP said players are not scared to lose 162 games. If the MLB attempts to implement a salary cap in the next collective bargaining agreement and stood nose to nose with Manfred at one point, sources told Passan, Manfred reportedly responded that he was not going to get the F out of here because it was a crucial talk about league issues. Nick Castellanos then comes in, tries to defuse the situation. And then I just wanted to get into one more thing here. Rob seems to be in a pretty desperate place on how important it is to get this salary cap because he's floating the word lockout 2 years in advance of the collective bargaining agreement expiration. That's nothing to throw around. That's the same thing as me saying in a marriage, I think divorce is possible. It's going to happen. You just don't say those things. Crazy story to see a player and the commissioner of your league going nose to nose in a clubhouse. Do I think that this was handled correctly by Bryce Harper? No. This is something this is how this stuff works. It is talked about. It is agreed upon. But I also don't hate. I'm not the biggest Bryce Harper fan. I've said that. But I also think that good on him for standing up for the players too. So I understand where both of them are coming from. I just, me personally, don't want to lose a season of baseball as a fan. But as a person that's going at this from a league perspective, trying to make money and try to make things work properly, and the players wanting to earn what they think they deserve, it's a clashing of ideas for sure.
It sounds like the talks are going well. It looks like everything's going okay. Bryce Harper's clearly pretty excited about what Rob Manfred was saying in that clubhouse. But it's always a funny story when you're going to see, Bryce Harper, traditionally known as kind of that hot-headed, a little bit of an emotional player. So if it was going to be anyone in the major leagues, not really surprised that it was Bryce Harper. He's definitely going to be a guy that is going to speak his mind. But crazy comparison to the divorce thing. It's a good comparison, which kind of sucks because why are you bringing that up a year and a half in advance already, when that shouldn't even really have an impact on what's going on right now? I know, you're the commissioner of the MLB. You're going to have to look long-term. That's part of your job. But, it's just a crazy developing story that doesn't really sit well with me, obviously, for the future of the MLB and, not having the lockout after that 2026 season. But we're going to have to obviously talk about that in the offseason a lot more next year as the story keeps on developing. But it's just one more thing added to this crazy week of the trade deadline. I was surprising that some punches weren't thrown in that meeting. Maybe to spice it up a little bit, have the benches clear in the clubhouse, and it's just the Phillies against Rob Manfred. See how that would go. But we got a series obviously to still get into. Got a doubleheader for the Toronto Blue Jays here. Again, going to be an absolute scorcher in Baltimore. So I think for me now, if you can split the doubleheader, and then now you kind of have to win that fourth game for me. You got to split against the Baltimore Orioles, at least still an AL East opponent. Still going to be tough games playing a Major League Baseball team. But for the pitching probables, I don't think anything's released for that first game. That's kind of like the bullpen days for both teams. But for the second game, the Toronto Blue Jays will have Eric Lauer. And I don't have actually the Orioles pitcher for this one. It might be Charlie Morton. I think that would make sense for the way kind of the schedule has rolled out. But
that's what it's seeming like. It has not been released either, though.
It hasn't been confirmed. I didn't think so because I got it on MLB.com, and they're usually pretty reliable. But it should be Charlie Morton, and if it is, send that old guy to Mars. It should score 1 million runs off Charlie Morton. This is not the greatest and the most refined pitcher, at least at this point in his career. Not going to completely disrespect Charlie Morton, because he has had some good years. But maybe hang him up after this season because things aren't going too well over there. But that's if Charlie Morton's on the mound, that for me is a must win. If you can split the doubleheader, like it's tough to win back-to-back games, especially when it's going to be as hot as it is in Baltimore. But it's going to be interesting to see who the Blue Jays are rolling out for these games. Again, Easton Lucas we talked about in the broadcast being around Lazaro Estrada. I think he'd be more comfortable with Lazaro Estrada. Again, with Lucas, with Estrada, you're kind of flipping a coin a little bit. But we've seen it more recently, at least with Estrada, and there's not as much tape on Estrada as well. So maybe for me, I'm kind of leaning over to there, but you're going to have to rely on some guys that, traditionally aren't the most consistent. But the Toronto Blue Jays have been doing that pretty much all year, and we have seen a lot of success. So I'm going to be optimistic going into this Tuesday game. But yeah, you're going to need some length from some guys here. So some big innings are going to have to be eaten in this stretch.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. This is going to be interesting. It's going to be a fun, interesting day of baseball. We hope you guys all enjoy it.
Man, give us a transaction. Like, I want something to talk about. I want to go live. I want to, kind of slack at work a little bit if I get the ability to do that. We need something to talk about. Maybe switch the narrative a little bit as well. Get a high-leverage bullpen guy in here. Get the good vibes flowing back in Toronto. For us, they haven't really left. Some people have jumped off the bridge already. Just reel it back in a little bit. Baseball teams are going to go through tough stretches. It's not a tough stretch, by the way. It's been 2 baseball games. That's not a tough stretch by any means. But I want a transaction bad. We haven't been able to talk about a transaction for a very long time. I know there's still a couple days left for the trade deadline, but I want to see an addition walk into this Toronto Blue Jays clubhouse.
Yeah, let's get it done. I need something too, Carter. I'm sitting here on pins and needles. I thought today was going to be the day. It wasn't. Hopefully, as this gets released, we'll have something.
And the longer we wait, the longer people we were giving bullpen arms more opportunity to bet on games here. We need to get some guys, with the Toronto Blue Jays, or there's going to be nobody available. I mean, we might have to have some guys on paid leave, which isn't going to help your team. But I mean, yeah, it's a dire situation. We got a travesty going on in the major leagues right now with all these people betting on their games.
I'll bite the bullet, right? I'll do it if I have to. I'll bet on the games. All right, I'll do it so that these guys don't. All right. It's like, I'll eat this so that I don't know. I actually don't have a thing out of this. I'll bet on the games. That's all.
I think you've been betting on our slow pitch games, and it's been ground out to second base. I think you got that hammered every single at bat. So you're doing a pretty good job, and hopefully making some money at least in our slow pitch games. But thank you guys for watching. Likes, comments, all the support recently has been much appreciated with all the new faces in here. We have realized that about 73% of you guys are not subscribed. So if you're coming back, tuning into the live streams that are going to happen, because the Jays are going to make a transaction. We're just, sitting patiently waiting for it. But the live streams, the shorts, the podcast, whatever we do post, it helps us out a ton. Also keeps our videos at the top of your page if you do ring that bell as well. But Braden, is there anything else to add for this episode before the doubleheader and for hopefully a transaction?
Carter, I don't know. We talked about a billion things today. I'm like, my brain's fried. I just want to go. I want to wake up. I want to go to bed. I want to wake up. I want to watch baseball again, and then go on the podcast again.
Let me talk about David Bednar for 45 minutes. Like, give me that. I want that bad tomorrow. Hopefully we do get that, and hopefully my dreams do come true. Just wanted to say one more time, thank you guys for watching, and be sure to be on the lookout for any transactions because we will be going live for those, and we will talk to you guys again tomorrow.